I don't think so. I don't think so. They love it. And are you in the biomedical kind of space? Yes. I think late tonight,
a conversation of Elena Doniago, an extraordinary young scientist who hopes to change the face of medicine.
Hello, thank you for your kind invitation to the Greek Economic Forum. I would like to congratulate you for your initiative, and I believe it's time for us to look ahead into a more prosperous and optimistic future. Today I would like to share with you a few thoughts about the role of science in policymaking, especially in our times when we depend on science for our health, nutrition, transport, entertainment, communication, and really every facet of our everyday lives. Undoubtedly, while the headlines are really devastating around the world nowadays, at the same time, the headlines of developments are more than promising. Today's staggering reality is that more than half of the world's wealth is owned by just 1% of the population, as global inequality soars and holds back the fight against global poverty and hunger. Complex problems sometimes demand complex solutions, or a more comprehensive, earnest, and holistic approach. But at the same time, we are in the early stages of an era of technological progress that is realized at such a fast pace that seemed inconceivable just a decade ago. And that's what makes me optimistic, but also mindful of the challenges that we are about to face and the changes inherent in government planning. I would like to share with you some inflection points that indicate that once we are able to adopt the innovation agenda, we will improve our quality of life while maintaining a human-centric perspective. So my first point is the Internet of Everything, where ubiquitous information combined with AI systems and cloud computing can transform our way of living, as well as the dematerialization of products, where no material is used to deliver the same level of functionality to the user. For example, our cell phones has dematerialized the GPS devices and digital cameras. So these concepts can transform the public sector. For example, diminish the bureaucracy with the use of artificial intelligent online agents that can provide you with all the information you need before you even know you need it. Some forward-thinking governments have seized the opportunity to revolutionize their educational systems with online interactive content. They have introduced health telemonitoring in remote areas, and they have used integrated sensors that have given rise to smart water management, conservation solutions, and traffic control in overpopulated cities. Second, a paradigm shift in productivity occurs with robotics and renewable energy. What started as a natural extension of automation 60 years ago has now spawned numerous new vertical markets. Robotics will render labor a far less significant component of overall production costs, allowing more expansion, therefore making us completely independent of geolocation. Countries whose economy is based on cheap labor will have to revisit their thinking. Robots will enter every aspect of our lives. They will be doing our household chores at night. They will assist physicians in performing more accurate and safe surgeries and intuitive diagnostics. There will be casual support for elderly people, and it will be unthinkable for humans to drive their own car, while autonomous cars and drones will become common vernacular. Next, 3D printing technology will give us the ability to manufacture anything, anywhere, one layer at a time. From lighter, more efficient plane parts that could save fuel on your flights, and mechanical prosthetics, to 3D printing whole houses, 3D printing food in remote environments and even space colonies, and 3D printing tissues and artificial organs for transplantations. Finally, stem cell technology, regenerative medicine, and synthetic biology will reinvent medicine. And I think it will also reinvent what we think as normal. Individualized medicine with stem cell biobanking and biotechnology will significantly alter the efficacy of therapeutics. We will be tissue engineering our transplants. We will be able to cure with gene prenatal therapy complex disorders and syndromes in babies even before their birth. And we will have extended human lifespan. With these points, I would like to draw your attention to how critical it is to connect the dots between research, technology policies, and public governance. It is evident that technological turbulence and disruption are not easily predictable. This sort of innovation agenda doesn't rely on politicians who think they can predict the next new thing in the grip of utopian visions. The roots of great innovation are never just in the technology itself. They're always in the wider historical context. They require new ways of seeing. The merger of these fields set off a cascade of innovations, producing not only new products and management styles, but also a new reality that no country, no matter how poor or wealthy, can escape. This isn't to say that we won't still face huge problems in the areas of pollution, corruption, and totalitarian governments, but we still have to face these problems with rigor. And I feel that it's useless to think about the pace of change without understanding where the change agents are. For me, the youth of today are our powerful change agents. They are the root of grassroots movements and have put flesh on the bones of social entrepreneurship. And it could be that some of you might be thinking that there is this part of the youth that has been raised in the midst of the deepest recession and has lost hope in their life's trajectory, putting the blame on their ruined futures on the older generations for their corrupt political system and blind social and environmental policies. However, although this frustration at certain instances might be justified, there's also this other half of the youth. This youth that has quit complaining, that has focused into driving innovation for sustainability and are convinced that they have the intelligence and commitment to turn things around. Science must be at the core of our national endeavor, and we are able to place and translate science into smart investments and public policies by regenerating civic engagement and designing for social good. Our nation's future depends on the quality of its thinking and its leaders. Thank you for your attention.
Well done to Lenny. Very interesting insights. What can one say about this? She's only 7 years old and she has CVs. It's astonishing. She's actually taking courses with the NASA Academy. And also has been voted from Forbes magazine 30 under 30 in calculating this year. And many things that you should check on her CV. We're continuing with Ms. Nelly Mancini, founding partner of TradeWars Inc., how to foster innovation through public policy. Lessons from the Canadian team.
I know. I'm scared already. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you this afternoon? Everybody had a good morning. I'm really pleased to be here today. I'm thrilled at the invitation that I received from GEF and especially for Christos, who really worked diligently to bring me here and to share with you some insights. And I know the topic sounds really boring, guys, but I promise you I'm going to try to make it colorful. But some insights with respect to the Canadian environment. And what I'm going to try to do is instill in you in terms of why the Canadian environment is such a good lesson for us to learn from. So just a little bit about my background. I'm Greek. You would know many senior, for those of you who are insightful, many. I'm Greek. I was born in Toronto, Canada. But like many of you that have come up here and have spoken about your Greek roots, being from Greece, born in Greece, and then leaving and wanting to come back and contribute. Even though I wasn't born in Greece, I have a strong tie and a strong connection to my Greek roots. And so it is my passion and my vision to try to help and collaborate with many of you that are here that I've met in order to be able to do something. And really what my hope for my presentation today, my objective, is to do just that, to bring hope. We've talked a lot about what are some of the challenges and the hurdles, but what brings us all here today is hope. Hope of being able to do something. Hope that comes from what I believe this forum is really trying to do. And it's trying to bring collaboration, it's trying to create dialogue, and that dialogue leads to us creating and exchanging ideas, and that is going to lead to inspiration that then enables us to do something. So that's really what I hope to accomplish today, that at the end of this talk, there is something that we can each individually do in order to move forward in building a modern Greece. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about us, our group, and what we do, and the experience that we bring to this forum. So TradeWorks is a private equity strategic advisory services group. This firm was born out of the idea of fostering innovation and the entrepreneurialism spirit and attitude. We are a team of diverse expertise, and that's what a good team needs. You need different strengths from different areas so that you can come together and collaborate to achieve a common goal. And so we have participated in launching a number of startups. We incubate companies, we invest in them, as well as we partner them with opportunities. We hold our own startups through incubation, and we take projects from concept right through to exit, and there's various exits. And everyone on our team has had some kind of experience of doing that. So we come with a diverse expertise in that area. We leverage public funding vehicles, and that's one thing that I'm going to want to talk to you about, and how that relates to opportunities in Greece. Canada has put a tremendous effort in supporting and fostering innovation, and we leverage those opportunities. But more importantly, we partner them with private investment. And we help companies through our network of alliances, global alliances, because at the end of the day, you want to grow. It's not just about creating a product and a service, you want to be able to take it out into the world. So what I'd like to do for a few minutes is just really quickly go through the Canadian landscape. And I want to talk about Canada of the past, and why I want to talk about Canada of the past is because 20 years ago, notice the items that I've listed on the far right side. Does that not look very similar to what Greece's environment is today? Absolutely, right? What are we faced with? High public debt. Exactly the same situation in Canada 20 years ago. What does that mean? Slow economic growth, unemployment. Who suffered the most? Our young people, right? So what happens is when there aren't jobs being created, our young people, what do? They leave. So we end up with a brain drain, and that was talked about earlier today. One of the challenges that we had was an excessively large public sector. Isn't that the case in Greece? The presentation that we heard earlier was just one government administration that deals with corruption, anti-corruption, was massive. Imagine the waste that is taking place where resources can be better deployed somewhere else. And more importantly, it's not just enough to have a desire. A country has to remove its barriers to trade, internally and externally. And Canada was fraught with regulation. We were fraught with challenges, not only internationally, but also amongst our provinces and getting goods across the border. But within a very short period of time, I mean, I shouldn't say it was a magical transformation, but within the Canada of today is a completely different landscape. There has been some really hard and austere measures that have taken place, programs that have been implemented, policies that were developed to be able to achieve the results that we want to see Greece achieve. So look at the results. We are constantly written up in different magazines, which is phenomenal. Forbes magazine ranks Canada #1 for best countries for doing business. Imagine if that was a headline for Greece. Is it possible? Of course it is. We looked at a presentation earlier that talks about all the advantages that Greece offers. The other benefit that we've been able to achieve is a drop in our unemployment rate. Significant drops in unemployment rate, especially amongst the young people. We're ranked one of the soundest bank systems in the world. And, Canadians are known as being conservative, very regulated, but that's been to our advantage. We are one of the few countries that has a AAA rating. So what does that mean? It instills confidence. What does that do? It fosters innovation. So what has the Canadian government been doing since the recession? And remember, that recession hit everybody. 2008, 2009, it was global. Now, Canada fared better because of our rules and regulations and our sound banking practices that we have. And there is a lot of information with regards to what we did to turn things around. I want to highlight 5 areas really quickly. Fostering job creation and innovation is key. How do you do that? And I'll talk a little bit about that. Keeping taxes low. Some of you are going to say, well, that's impossible. Greece can't do it. Their debt is so high that they can't do it. We're going to talk about some of these maybe longer-term initiatives, but I'm also going to talk about some short-term things from an entrepreneurial perspective that can be done. The other major initiative that Canada undertook is promoting the stable environment. Because we've been so financially responsible, guess what that does? Companies want to invest in Canada. We've welcomed them to invest in Canada. So we are promoting those opportunities. And we work with a lot of different groups alongside with government in order for us to be able to attract some of these companies into Canada. Recently, what I've been working on, and I've had the opportunity to have some discussions with some of you, we do things like I'm working with a Brazilian company. They're a very large global pharmaceutical company. They're working on a business case of why invest in Canada. The money that they're going to spend is significant. They're developing a new drug. They know for 10 years they're going to be a cost center. And we're building the business case to show them that, guess what, there's financial stability. There is great opportunity, and we're bringing jobs. That's the kind of initiative that Canada does, and we work in partnership with different government agencies to bring to our country. But more importantly, it's because of the support and advancement that takes place in our R&D. And that's what I'm going to spend most of my time in. So how can you foster innovation in an environment where business can grow and exceed internationally? Well, what Canada did is we promoted economic growth by changing our rules, simplifying rules. If you want to grow international, you have to create an environment that supports those initiatives. There was a great analogy that Mr. Eleftherios talked about localization. I'm going to steal that one, by the way, so if you trademarked it, I'm taking liberties on it. That's the environment we're in, globalization. You want to be local, go global. Well, it's one thing to want to do it, but the environment has to be able to support that. The rules and regulations have to be there. There has to be some effective tax relief and simplified regulations, tax regulations, in order to reduce the burdens. This is fundamentally what Canada did in order to turn that around. We wanted to be able to foster and nurture the small to mid-sized enterprise. We wanted those micro businesses, we wanted those entrepreneurs that we want to encourage them spending money. And how we were able to achieve that is by implementing some of these tax saving initiatives and programs. And as a result, we have been able to outperform in this area. We've increased our jobs by over 1 million jobs, increase of 6.3%, and keeping taxes low has really made us competitive, which is why a lot of companies want to come into our region. Now, what's interesting, a slide that I found very interesting, I'm going to skip through a lot of this information, was that as you reduce taxes, does that mean there's less money for government? No. What happens? There's more money. Why? because it allows, go ahead.
Coffee grows where nobody's getting to the game.
Absolutely. Money that would have been spent on taxes and now spent on things like growth. Some of our clients, what we're finding the change is we're investing in new equipment. When we're spending money on new equipment, guess what that does? It increases productivity. When it increases productivity, they're making more money. It's a huge,
The increase though is not understood. It's not understood by the lenders, and the lenders don't approve it.
I think it's Europe in general.
Was that?
I think it's Europe in general.
that doesn't realize that when you empower entrepreneurs, that small to mid-sized marketplace, they're going to find ways to do things better, which leads to more. And this graph really shows that. So those that are economists in the room, and or if you could borrow this slide, I've listed the sources. This is the magic what happens by reducing taxes. It allows the recirculation of resources in a more effective manner. So what I really want to talk about, and what I'm really passionate about, and our mission for our firm is to really foster innovation and entrepreneurialism. And entrepreneurialism, what I believe it's something that's in you. It's a way of how you look at things. I was born and raised into an entrepreneurial family. My father left Greece when he was very young, came to Canada, endured many hardships, but what he did was he always looked for opportunity. If there were barriers, he found ways around that, and he's built a very successful enterprise. He's a developer and has done extremely well. I didn't follow that conventional path. I didn't follow that path initially. I went more into the corporate world, but it's in my blood. And so being an entrepreneur is what drives me, and why I'm here. And we had a discussion earlier. It's like, why do you do what you do? And it's really because I want to foster, and I want to especially give to the young people so that we have an opportunity to leave something positive behind. Now, what we're fortunate with is we have some really great programs in Canada that are designed to foster innovation. But guess what? It's not just about giving away free money. There's an objective behind them. There's smart policies that are designed to do what the government wants, which is have more money available for tax, from a taxation perspective, so it can do what it needs to do. But the benefit is that it also helps businesses, because when you invest in innovation and you're able to, what does it do to the economy? It fuels growth. It allows improvements to take place. It improves the standard of living. It improves the quality of people that you have in your country, right? You have more educated people. And what Canada wants to become known as is an innovation center. We want to be known as an area that attracts development, and we see that happening. So to do that, Canada spends billions of dollars in supporting innovation. There are tremendous benefits that we derive as a result of that in being able to attract. Our immigration laws have changed to be able to attract talented people. We are able to get support on different funding levels from the government. And that's what I want to talk to you about as an example of some of the things that we're doing. And these benefits are there not just for the small startups or the mid-sized companies. Our firm works with companies that are as large, multinational companies. Our largest client is a $128 billion company. So we'll go right from startup to global enterprises that have the availability of direct support through grants, loans, equity investments. What we see changing in the government is they will partner with VC firms and angel networks so that there is co-investment, so that there are some programs that if as a group we are registered, so there's a registration process, and we are an approved angel or VC company, and we've vetted a company, the government will match up to $1 million per initiative. Similar to what we heard of today. The difference is there are some hooks. Business supports, these are considered business supports that the government offers. And I have an extremely long list of what these business supports are. There's $30 billion worth of programs, 4,500 programs out there. Can you become an expert on all of them? Absolutely not. Do you want to become an expert on all of them? No. because some of these programs are, one of the speakers earlier said the problem with some of these government support programs is there's a basket of funds, and when that money is gone, it's gone. You either grab it or you don't. The one that our firm participates in, out of these 4,500 initiatives, we participate in 6. 6 of these programs are the lion's share of that amount of money. One in particular that I'm going to talk to you about, and I'm going to talk about what the relevance to Greece is a program that is referred to as a Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program. It's a mouthful. So for those that are the academics in the room, what it does is it funds scientific research, whether it's applied or basic research. But the area that we focus on primarily is the experimental development component, trying to do something, improve a process, make something better, make it faster, change, take something of one constituent material and apply it into something else. Companies innovate and don't even realize they innovate because what they lack is the proper systematic approach to their efforts. They don't lack that tracking that they need to have in place. And that's what builds IP. And so we leverage this government funding program because it is the largest source of support. It encourages research. It encourages businesses of all sectors and all sizes to take advantage of it. And it actually provides cash or credit incentives. The difference with this program is it doesn't give money in advance. There's other programs for that. You have to spend money and then you get it back. And you get it back in one of 2 ways, either actual cash back or you get it back in credits. And basically what it does is it helps us remain competitive. How do you think we're able to attract these global businesses to come into Canada, to want to spend money? So imagine that for this particular example with a Brazilian company, for every dollar they spend, we can help them get 64 to 65 cents on the dollar back. That's significant, right? Obviously, it's designed to attract and bring them into our country. And because it's administered, it's attached to our tax act. What happens to taxes? Do they ever go away? No. What's predictable? Death and taxes, right? So because it's attached to the tax act, it's not one of these programs that goes away. It's not a program that has a cap on it. It's based on the incentive behind this program is Canada wants to have innovation stay in Canada. Otherwise, what do companies do? They export it. Why? Because it's cheaper to hire programmers in the Philippines or somewhere else. So what happens to our intellectual capital? It goes offshore. Now, let's be real now. That sounds all great. Why do you think the government is doing this? Because they know that for every dollar that they give an incentive to a company, remember, you're spending money. When you spend money, what do you do to the economy?
Stimulate.
You stimulate the economy. So they know that, yeah, I'm going to give you 64, 65 cents on the dollar, but you're spent what kinds of costs? Things like labor, materials. Those are the types of refunds that you can get refunded. So if I'm an employer and I'm hiring people, I'm paying employer source deductions. I'm paying employees so they have to pay taxes. Then they have money to go out and buy things, there's taxes. So this system, by way that it's designed, is smart policy because it accomplishes the objective of not only fostering innovation and giving stimulus to businesses, but it also accomplishes the objective of keeping money in their coffers. So that's the beauty of it. So, but what it does for companies is it provides, and this is how we position it. It provides, imagine, companies need profitability to continue to survive. If I'm able to get back money on their bottom line, they're going to spend that money anyway. But now they have a source that they can actually reinvest back into R&D, and they can use it as for many other benefits, as incentives to get money from the government, from banks and whatnot. But how it benefits the country is it fosters innovation. It enhances our global competitiveness. It creates an educated society. There's tremendous economic benefits, but the bottom line is they're getting more taxes. So is that point clear? It's fantastic to see that. The other thing that we do significantly is there are additional programs like the Canada Ontario Jobs Grant Program, for example. I have another client, American company. They are looking to set, and what's interesting is they have a footprint in Athens. So excited to hear that. I was trying to connect with the CEO before I got here to find out what the environment is for them. They're a global organization, 180,000 employees worldwide. They have 4 global centers. One is in Athens. So I was quite amazed that even though they're in 62 countries, they've chosen Athens to be a global market. And they're looking for Toronto to be a global market as well. So what are we doing? We're working to help them put as much incentive and initiative together to attract them here. They are going to be hiring approximately 5,000 people within the next 5 years. Significant. The economic benefit they're going to be bringing to the country is 500 million. So guess what we're doing? We're forcing the government to need to step in and help support these companies. And those are some, and why I bring this example is because, you know, your government structure may be different, but when you paint a business case for an opportunity, they're more inclined to listen. How we're getting the support, even though we have tremendous amount of programs and we work in collaboration, is we want that company to be in Canada. Imagine the economic benefit and the spillover effect to other industries that will take place by having them be placed in Canada. So we have different programs like Invest Toronto that attracts companies, employment programs that are designed to do just that. So where do we go from here? All sounds great, Canada, yay, but how does that benefit Greece? What I realized after today's session in particular is generally we talk about barriers, we talk about problems, we talk about what's not working. What I was surprised to learn in this conference is that the brain power that we have here is tremendous. It's remarkable. I was so impressed with the level and the quality of people that have come together, passionate and committed to want to make a difference. But how do we make that difference? How do we take some of these lessons and bring them home? Does anybody have anything they any ideas or suggestions?
One thing that you spoke about, I want to remind you is, because that's a key value observation, is the spread of entrepreneurism in all kinds of activities that the youngsters can take. And I know you're very passionate about this, so make it a little more concrete in an environment where there's a lot of, allow me to say, a lot of talk, a lot of fluff. Related with your experience, have been pointing out significant lessons being entrepreneurial. We add value to the young guys.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Yes.
We start from the source we have, which is the brain power.
The brain power.
And then lots of ideas were offered today alone. It's a very rich day in terms of entrepreneurial activities. So take the brain power and match it to the opportunities that is there to develop something. Okay? Specific things. Dr. Cadiz pointed to lots of things around food and industries around food. Invested there. Then there are the incubators, what we call technological parks around universities, and the brain power is tremendous there. Okay, if a company was invested to explore one of the options that are available there in the economy, this is another area.
Excellent.
This is another area that we could explore.
So sorry to interrupt you there, but I want to capture that point. That's an excellent point, that partnering opportunities and bringing those incubated opportunities into Greece. The problem is for people like me that are, outside of Greece, there isn't the education or the advertisement that these exist. So I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, and there was a company there, very successful, 5 partners. So it's a privately held company. They've done exceedingly well. And they have operations in Belarus, they have operations in Brazil, in other parts where it's tech space. One of the things that one of the partners said is, I'm Greek. And he goes, my roots are Greek. I was born in Canada. 3 of our partners are Greek. When we had one of our management meetings, we thought, why are we not in Greece? Why have we not looked at exploring opportunities out there? And the challenge for them is that there isn't that bridge to do that connection. And what I'm hoping is that that's the role that GEF can fill. That's really what I see this to be as an opportunity. So what they were looking at, I just want to further this point, is that as we're, Greece has the environment. You have intelligent, high capital
There are
people.
Major universities that you can take the bridge and they will welcome your,
Right.
at least.
But the communication and the bridge has to go out. And I want to just further this thought a little bit to say that here's a company that is willing to explore opportunities. Is the ecosystem, the business environment conducive to bringing an operation there? And one of the comments which I found interesting that the partners made was, I'm Greek. I don't really go to Greece. I go to Belarus more than I go to Greece. At least if we set up an operation here, I have the excuse of going back to visit my country. And he goes, and I'm sure that we would find there's universities, they did the research to find, well, there's incredible universities in Greece. So how do we set that up, that communication? So my recommendation to them was, let's create a little micro hub. Since I have one client already that has an operation in Athens, let me connect you to them so that we can create a little hub there. The benefit that this conference actually brought is there was one of the professors that is out of England. He was one of the participants in the event. He is an IT expert. So there's an opportunity, and his passion, he's living in London, his passion is to move back. So that's a bridge that I can connect, and it was only possible because of GEF. And so what I see your role being is that conduit that helps to build the bridge. Why? Because the reason I chose to talk to you about these R&D programs in Canada is because we can partner and connect opportunities. So where there is development or there's entrepreneurial possibility in Greece, we can help foster that in Canada as well. Whether it is doing sharing and partner, that is something that we do. We'll either help bring innovation in Canada by partnering from different companies like Brazil, and then Greece benefits as well because they get to exploit the IP that's developed. But we get to take advantage of the tax regime. In the meantime, on a parallel strategy, the powers that be need to work on certain things that are longer term pictures, like simplifying the regulatory regime, creating more transparency, all those big things that we talked about that are problematic in what occurs in Greece. But we don't have to wait for this in order for us to affect change. This conference is about doing one thing that can affect that change, that can bring about a shift. And so what I challenge you is to think about what is one thing that you learned that Jeff can bring value to personally in your life, community, and country. For me, I realized what I found out is I'm beyond impressed with 2 things. Number one, I wasn't aware of the business landscape that exists in Greece. I wasn't aware of the entrepreneurial ecosystem that is budding and thriving to explode. So I find that to be a huge value that I want to explore and exploit further. The other thing that I learned is that look at how many people that have left Greece that are committed and passionate to bring back and give back. And I can tell you that through this conference, I have made some phenomenal contacts and networks that I'm sure are going to be more than just a high of meeting new people. We're gonna stay in touch and connected because we're committed to doing something. That's the value that I got out of this conference.
There's already a nucleus.
Exactly. There's already a nucleus.
It's
Absolutely.
clear case.
And what I find so amazing is you sat here throughout the whole conference, eager, taking information, wanting to share. And I think that's the value for you young people, because you have the drive. We had this conversation earlier. You have the drive, you have the passion, you have the youth behind you. And we want to be the gray hair, so to speak, not that we want to admit we have gray hair, but that supports you to drive that forward. And your role is really to be that conduit, as I see it. That conduit that creates the linkage in connecting resources together. Resources from needs and wants, right? We have to go somewhere. I didn't know where to go to find how to, I want to help this company. I think their cause is noble. How do I help them? I found an answer.
Another idea, don't establish activity locally in Greece immediately. There is accumulated human capital with expertise that serve the purposes of your business. It wouldn't be a bad idea to import them, have them start selling in Canada, and then
Excellent transfer. No, we have globalization.
Yeah.
You can be resident in Greece and working in anywhere. You know, I do have ventures in different parts of the world. In Asia, I spent the last 3 years working with a very diverse team. Team in Vietnam, team in Hong Kong, team in China, team all across Canada, different time zones. But you know what? We were able to achieve results because I have the local experts that are driving the business ventures that we have and the startup and technology that we developed in the Vietnam market, as an example. So those barriers, like today's world of technology and today's world of social media, has really taken away a lot of barriers to us doing anything or you know, trade and working. You have a question or a comment?
Just a comment. I love everything you said so far. It's very on point. And to add what you said, somebody earlier in the week in their presentation mentioned what is widely considered as the gold standard of traded investment associations, Korean investment trade organizations. I don't think we have anything comparable in Greek world, whether it's a chamber of commerce, but in a way that what you said bypasses the government, the structural obstacles. This is a way to totally circumvent the obstacles that the system poses to create these bridges that you're talking about.
You're absolutely right. And guess what? We've already eliminated significant barriers, because the presentation we heard earlier about the Hellenic Entrepreneurs Award, that I was amazed with. You know, that is an opportunity. If someone's, like, I can tell you, my dad experienced many hardships when he first came to Canada. But guess what? He was unstoppable, right? He did not look at the barriers. He looked at what's the opportunity.
If I can go back to Zanis's point, there is the youth entrepreneurship movement in Thessaloniki, right? So hundreds of young guys congregate just to watch a video or be able to talk to each other. I think Jeff's nucleus here, and I'm looking at Valerie and Christo, they have the responsibility now to follow through. And if you guys think correspondingly we have created a nucleus between academicians, business women and men out of this conference, so there should be a clear matching between business and academia towards mentoring, right? You said that you asked for this mentorship, we're going to put effort no matter what, right? I paid for this ticket, I didn't have the time, I made the time to come, so that's what's commitment, right? The same thing with this guy, he's a professor, he doesn't have to do that, he's been here for 4 days. The same thing with many. So when there's commitment, you have to follow through and utilize our, if you want, métiers, right? Either business or academia as opportunities to provide mentorship. One month in Boston, for example, at the U. 1 month in my neck of the house, wherever it's going to be in September. 1 month potentially in Toronto, or web-based collaboration with trade groups. But this is something that you have to take the ball and run with it.
And it may seem daunting and overwhelming, but what is the one thing that you can take action on? That's what I always ask myself when I invest time, or, you know, I've been trained and conditioned in an environment of efficiency. You know, I always say effort is great, but guess what? It means nothing, because at the end of the day, it's all about the results.
You have to say that to them again. Please do.
So effort, this is a philosophy that I use with my team. You know, I build 18s. So it's like, you know what? I know you like mediocrity, or you like a different pace. Guess what? There's a home for you, and it's not here. And I'm not being mean, I'm just being, you know, placing the right people in the right opportunity. So I think it's very important that, yes, there's a responsibility on you now, because this was your vision, your dream, your idea, and you enrolled us. I'm enrolled. I'm here, he's here, we're all here. So now what's the next step? That's the movement you've already created. Now take that back to Greece with you. Entrainment. Do you know what entrainment is? Entrainment happens when there's a lot of academics here. You know what entrainment is. I know, right?
Yeah, we made a huge conference on music and training. So what we have, for example, and there is a group, and we play on the rhythm, and the other group has another rhythm. Suddenly, this rhythm will go faster and faster.
Contagious.
Exactly.
Cannot, guys, Professor Rapti reminded me something that many said yesterday. Advisory board. The development of an advisory board that can provide some kind of guidance. I already had Dr. Zanisky just volunteer. What is going to look at me? That's it. Just volunteer.
There you go.
Be a part of the advisory board.
You're
Professor
volunteering.
Rapti,
I will be
Well,
here.
and a commitment from the advisors that they will.
the guys that I'm speaking about is on cases Tuesday, you know, they already showed the commitment. The privilege is actually a real pleasure of talking to them. They're committed. Mukava, Professor Rapti, Human. I mean, we have, of course, feel free if you think if other guys cannot tell us this, but an advisory board is phenomenal to provide some guidance strategy-wise. That's all. But it's your game.
And at the end of the day, it's all about results.
I want to do it just because I want to do it.
I would want to hear Dr. Giannis in the question.
A tremendous wealth of knowledge.
With you?
That's a terrific idea, but I have a question. We are reaching somewhere.
I'm coming to
In the
Greece.
startup companies you have within Canada, is there a possibility that somehow we find a mechanism to have internships for a short period of time for young people, college, let's say, students in an advanced third or year or so, short time, so that they open their mind what is possible, because they don't know these possibilities exist. Okay? So they wait to graduate and then they wait to find a job. They come there and see what is possible for them, then we'll make all the difference.
So there, I can answer your question. Great
It's like the
question.
exchange
So
program.
there's two programs. So our firm does in fact invest in students, young people, and we bring in students and they work with us. Why? Because in our space, it doesn't matter what your field of study is. There's something, and I'll tell you why. I had recently a med student that came and worked with us. Now, what is a med student doing in a consulting firm? Right? You're going to ask that question. It's crazy. And I have an aerospace engineering student who came to our firm. Let me tell you the value that they bring. Remember, experimental development is about creating a systematic approach to your initiatives. There's only so many words of legislation, and then there's the documentation. And most companies miss that component. That's what we're experts in. So when they have a field of study that is, you know, there was one company I had this medical student work on. She completely understood the lab results. This company had developed this nanotechnology that was, you know, kills mold, it kills bacteria, it's fogged into a space. Now, our objective is to help them get money from the government. Through that process, most companies that come to us need money. They don't really need money initially. Nobody's ready for money. They're a leaky bucket. That's the reality of it. That's what we find. What they need is guidance, structure, direction, mentorship. But often they think they know the best way. But if I go through the process of analyzing them to get them qualification for this government program, I have a window, not only to vet the technology, vet the people, restructure them, but now if I partner money, I know that I'm risk mitigating the firm's money because I can get X percentage back. So I'm able to help them grow and innovate even more. So, but in order for me to get the benefit from the government, we have to file claims. That's all technical data, technical and financial. So we bring accounting, forensic accounting experts, as well as different, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's IT, a diverse team. One of our students came to us to Hong Kong. We had a tremendous, we bought a company in Hong Kong to do some ventures out there, and we brought this young student in order for them to be able to see what the world is like with business in that part of the world. So we do that, but let me just further on that. The government, yes, the other program that we have in Canada is called a pay program, which is designed for young people. We know there's a gap where you have young people that are educated, they graduate school, and then what? Where do they go? Where no one wants no experience. Who's going to give them that opportunity? So now there's government programs, but I'll tell you what we're doing. I'll tell you what TradeWorks is doing. We go to clients and we work with them to help find placement. We do our small part. So as a result, with this one client that is looking, they have a mandate, but before the end of the year, they want to hire 1,000 people. The beautiful part of it is multilingual. They're creating a multilingual hub. So I'm reaching out to the Polish communities, I'm reaching out to the Spanish communities, I'm reaching out to the young people that want to build a career in the customer service space to help them grow in this organization. So my long-winded answer is that everyone has to do their part. And we can sit and point the finger and it's your job and your responsibility, but we all can do something. And that's what I challenge you. I challenge you to think about having sat through and committed to being here. Many of you came from far away. There's people that came from England, there's people that came from all parts of the States, Canada, you name it, we've traveled, and some that are local. But what value, what I challenge you to what you could do. What's the one thing you can do or are willing to do? So I'm willing to participate as an advisor. I'm willing to help you put a little bit more structure so that you identify, as we talked yesterday at dinner, what's your mission, vision? What do you really want to be about? Because when you define that, there is a force that gets unleashed that is unstoppable, right? And that builds momentum. Success builds momentum. Like attracts like. Ducks swim with ducks. So if you want to create a movement in Greece, what is the famous saying? Be the change you want to see. I don't mean to be cliche, and paraphrase this quote, but that's really what you need to do. We all need to do. So what's the one thing that you could do? Yeah, you're a young person. I'm picking on you. Okay, does anybody, what's the one thing you can do? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but that's what we need to challenge ourselves with, right? What am I taking back to my life? Is there anything you learned, or that you learned in your life that you could put a value on? One thing is the network, right?
I know that personally I'm thinking of going back to next opportunity I have with this network at my disposal, making a presentation like this to the most son from my family as well, about it's an ideal spot for the creation of a mixed solar and wind farm to create energy. Just 3 years ago, a massive fire burned down about half of the island in the middle of the summer, destroyed the electrical infrastructure, and exposed the island's energy dependence to neighboring peers. An opportunity like this not only would put money and into those pockets and create the stimulus that we talked about, but for example, it would also create sustainable energy solutions, the same funds that would otherwise be allocated to renovating antiquated and outmoded energy and hydrocarbon energy sources. So I don't know. That's something that I was thinking about
So you're
yesterday, for
thinking about
example.
So that's a concrete lesson for Stefanos also. You fired up.
Yeah,
So
you're
the last
passionate,
3
you're
days-
speaking about it from,
the
from,
last 3 days, he's supposed to be here, he's asking questions.
which is amazing. So you're here not for yourself, but alone, but for your community. But what you need to do in order to keep that vision going is you need to create a support system around you that's going to remind you, that's going to inspire you, that's going to support you to be able to take on such a daunting, noble responsibility and cause. And guess what? You had a professor here that is in that space that you can leverage for the brain power to help you, and even as a sounding board, to validate your model and your idea. And then you have funding partners that are here that if you put a concrete.
Consultancy, for example, we have the Sustainable Development Fund.
Exactly.
Mr. Garcias was talking about energy, about alternative energy opportunities. I mean,
So you got it, and that's the whole point of this. The whole point of it was to stop the conversation that we can't do anything. It's to stop talking about it. You know, the reality is we Greeks like to gossip, right? We like to talk, you know, and that's unproductive. But when you take and you put these ideas into something positive and productive, look at how many people, you inspired me. Look at how many people you inspired with this initiative. Now you got to keep it alive. And the support in order to achieve that and keep you on track is Jeff and the advisors and Jeff. That's the purpose behind this, as I see it. You have a question?
Yeah, Dimitri Pizas, it's really enjoying all the dialogue, and I think I wanted to throw in is I really feel relationships are the core of change. You know, I don't understand you, you don't understand me. It's kind of hard, even if I have good intention, to kind of have the right fit. You know, and so I'd really love to see, and as I say this, I volunteer myself. But I'd love to see more of these kind of mentorship opportunities. I don't know if they're done via Skype, via email, but just so that talent and mentorship and you can just be that hub that you were speaking about, that at least remotely we can gain some traction so that we can then go in person geographically in Greece and, you know, the annual whatever event or whatever, if it turns out to be more an accelerator program or whatnot. But I think what I'm worried about is, you know, all these suggested ventures. You know, there's money requirements and there's programs out there, but you need people to own that. And I feel like that takes time and energy. Is there something we can just do the very next right step? You know, that just so we don't break the conversation.
That's a good question, and I say that the very next step starts with you. You taking the very next step, me taking the very next step. Each one of us has to be accountable for taking that next right step because you have a vision to do something. You're out to do something. You got to go out there and get what you need. And what Jeff is not about doing it for you. It's about creating a vehicle and a mechanism that allows you to be in events like this to meet people, that you get to find the resources you need to make your dream come true. That's how I see it. Right? So the next step is find the people that you think can align with you. The vision behind TradeWorks, how TradeWorks got started, just to give you a little bit of history, because some people don't even need to work. They've sold their companies, they've done extremely well for themselves. But the reason it was born out of creating an advisory, you know, I had an idea one day thinking, if I never had to work a day in my life, what would I do with myself? I'm a woman, I like to shop. I'd be bored out of my mind if all I did was shop. You know what? I worked hard my entire career, breaking barriers and being a woman in corporate, you know, strategic advisory. I mean, we have a company that is a $128 billion company that we're the strategic advisors. You know, they have smarter people. But we are entrepreneurial, and we each have a unique view and a unique gift. So all this expertise that I built and my team built, we wanted to give back so that we become a portal of opportunity for others to be able to be supported. And so what we do is we have different, what is support? It could be funding. So we've put processes in place to smart funding, leveraging public-private, smart funding initiatives. Because if I'm going to put my money into something, trust me. Like, I'm amazed with the Hellenic entrepreneurs. I want to have a stake in it, in seeing it be successful, because I've got skin in the game, right? We put in advisors. So we have collaborations with universities, with professors. Why? Because when I'm bringing this Brazilian company, for example, into Canada, and I'm already doing the taxation analysis and the job creation, I need a university to partner with so that I can bring studies to that university that my class. So do you see, you build an ecosystem that has all these different elements and components. You have to be unstoppable. What do you need? Don't be afraid to ask. The resources are always right underneath you, but we're afraid to take that next step. That's what I find. That's been my experience, and I work with a lot of startups. I work with a lot of some of our clients, one in particular, 3 brothers. They don't even have, they just finished high school. This is my informal study, is studying the entrepreneurial mind, because often the most successful people defy conventional logic. They built a company, their first company, they thought, you know what, we're gonna build it to 100 million. They did it in 10 years, sold it. Then they retired for 2 years, they got bored. They said, well, let's do it again. In 5 years, they surpassed 100 million. They're at 1.7 billion, private. Guess what? They're unstoppable. There's no barriers. They found a gap, and they filled that gap. So what do you need? Go out and get it. And you have the network here to be able to achieve that, or help you achieve that. Time, right? Coming? Okay. One thing that I want to say, and I think that I want to share one last nugget with you. There's a lot of people I want to acknowledge. So I had a lot of data and a lot of statistics. So if you want to understand the movement that you created, the momentum that you have generated as a result of Jeff, let me tell you, when I let my team know that, hey, I'm coming to Harvard, there's the Greek Economic Forum that I want to participate in. As I started talking about it, I realized, wow, I have some amazing Greek professionals in my network. And gosh, the commitment and passion they have to contribute is amazing. But it wasn't only the Greek people. It was some other people from different groups that all came together. I should show you the email that I got of information, data, papers. They sent me, I'm telling you, I would have done 4 days of information if I shared everything that they gave me. But these are the people that contributed or wanted to contribute in some way, where they gave me documentation to share with you because of the commitment. You throw a stone in the river, what happens? Waves, ripple effect. So I have touched different levels of government. Invest Toronto is on a municipal level. The Ontario Ministry of Economic Development, which you spoke to Mr. Peter Kalogyanidis, and he provided his commitment and his feedback, and he just wasn't able to make it. But he is someone who is committed to bridging, and what he does is he brings investment into Ontario. He's been responsible for over $1 billion of investment that he's brought, and he's committed to helping Greece. So these are the resources that really helped, and I believe deserve recognition. And you need to understand the impact that you've had. So I want to thank you for your time. If there's anything that I can support you with, I'm here and available. And I applaud your passion and commitment to build a modern Greece. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mancini. If I may, you totally schooled us today. But you're into the point of what we're trying to do here. And we're really glad that you want to participate in that. Next, we're going to have Mr. Thomas Panay, founding Director of Berkeley Institute for Faith and Democracy. we're gonna have an interview so that you can.
Actually, we will improvise.
Okay, I will improvise. In the end, you are from the Institute for Creative Enterprises. So
That's
we have
correct.
to be creative. Okay, so Mr. Panay,
Nice.
and you will talk about the inner game of entrepreneurs.
Good stuff. Okay, thanks everyone. I'll admit this was supposed to be a totally different format, and maybe a completely different time frame, but because we're running behind, and unfortunately I booked myself solid, we'll improvise. And I'll start by saying that I think that's one of the critical things of being an entrepreneur, is being able to course correct and adjust according to what happens, according to shifting conditions. Again, this was supposed to be an interview format, and maybe a bit longer, but let's make the most with the time that we have. I'll quickly introduce myself. I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'll tell you where I'm from. Also tell you some of the stuff that we're developing and how it's applicable. I am at Berklee College of Music. Some of you may think, what the hell does music have to do with entrepreneurship? But hopefully by the time I'm done, you're able to make some of these correlations and we can have an interesting conversation. So I'm originally from Cyprus. I know my accent does not betray that, but I was born and raised in Nicosia. I came here to go to Berklee College of Music when I was 19. And I was aspiring to be a professional guitar player. I realized early on that I kind of sucked at it, and I think that's one of the messages to entrepreneurs: fail early, find what you're good at, and keep moving forward. So I ended up doing music business, became a talent agent for a number of very well-known artists, especially in the jazz field. Actually booked a lot of artists at Ligavidos and other places in Athens. I booked a lot of jazz artists like pianist Chick Corea, guitarist Pat Metheny. And then I started my own company, a company called Sonic Bids. That's an online platform that helps bands connect with people who book music. I started the company in 2000. It was an idea that came out of my experience being a talent agent, which is another critical piece to being an entrepreneur, that I feel that sometimes we put so much emphasis on people starting businesses that we underestimate the importance of being out there and experiencing different environments, working with different people, being employed by somebody else first, and then going out there and doing something of their own. But I got inspiration from my company because we had this informal rule at our talent agent that unless somebody made $3,000 a night, we couldn't take them on as a client. So this was late 1999, which was a totally different era than today. And I thought, well, gee, not every artist that I know is making that kind of money. Not every promoter that I know is able to book artists for that kind of money. So where does everybody else go? And why are we sending these plastic things across the world, these CDs, in order to explain to somebody what this artist sounds like? I mean, this is the internet era after all. So can I create a platform of sorts that makes it easy for bands to connect with promoters online? So that was my inspiration. Another theme that I'll keep repeating is this concept of being resourceful. I did not know how to code. I didn't have any money to start a business other than my own personal savings. The bubble in the internet, or the first internet bubble, because I do believe, sadly, we're another one right now, burst in 2000. So nobody would give money to me to start a business. But all these adverse conditions, which is something that Greece is going through right now, I actually feel led me to making the right decisions that enable me to build a company for the long term rather than something for the short term. So I quit my job, started my company out of my apartment. I started with about $50,000 of my savings, and literally put one foot in front of another. And I'll skip about 13 years of my life and talk about where the company is right now. We built it to the largest platform that does this, that connects bands with, again, people who book or license music from around the world. Over 600,000 bands from 100 different countries use Sonic Bids. Over 1 million gigs have been booked using the platform since I started it. Some 38,000 music promoters ranging from big events like South by Southwest or the Bonnaroo Festival here, or a lot of big festivals in Europe with companies like MTV or advertising companies use the platform to find new music. And I, like many entrepreneurs at some point, or many artists at some point, I sort of felt that I kind of wrote this composition and painted everything that I could paint on this canvas, and I reached a point where maybe somebody else can do a better job than me. So I sold the company about 2 years ago to a private equity firm called Guggenheim Partners. I will not, contrary to all the glorification of an exit, if you will, and of selling businesses or flipping companies or whatever euphemism you want to use, I found that the process of selling a business that you started out of your apartment to be a fairly wrenching one, irrespective of the financial outcome that it has for you. A business becomes something personal, it becomes something that is an inextricable part of who you are, especially if you run it for 13 years. So I do have this whole experience of starting a company out of my apartment, borrowing about $30,000 on different credit cards. I played the credit card roulette, as we used to call it. I raised venture capital money, but not too soon. I raised it 7 years after I started the company. I went through the process of exiting. And then being a Berkeley graduate, I was approached by Berkeley to do something that I feel has a lot of application to what we're talking about. That is to, well, my only mandate was build an entrepreneurship institute at Berkeley. The president approached me. He was on my board of directors. I was chair of the advisory board at Berkeley for a very long time. And we started thinking, and again, I'm going to use as many parallels as possible here. We started thinking about the challenges that our graduates were facing, who, by the way, spend about $250,000 to get an education in Berkeley College. It is not cheap to go to Berkeley. So they're saddled with debt. They just spend all this money to get an education. And unlike a Harvard student or an MIT student that will be recruited out of college and go work for a McKinsey or go work for Google or Microsoft, Berkeley graduates are by and large expected to go and develop and build their own careers. So the mission of the Institute is less so about starting bona fide businesses, the way that we think of them. It's not about just starting another Spotify or another Pandora or another Warner Brothers, but it's more about how do we install or instill this entrepreneurial mindset to our students? How do we make them feel that they are the startup? And the motto is, every Berkeley student is a startup. So what does this mean and how do we do it? First of all, we're approaching this by saying entrepreneurship is by and far a mindset, more than anything else. And that's the way that I've seen my life. And we also feel that being a musician in many ways prepares you quite a bit for the life of being an entrepreneur. How so? Well, first of all, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to deal with ambiguity. It's less about structure, and it's more about being comfortable with balancing some known with that ambiguity. Music is very similar, especially when it comes to the pedagogy that we promote at Berkeley, which is around jazz improvisation. Jazz is very similar to entrepreneurship because it is something that balances, again, structure with ambiguity. Improvisation is at the heart of being an entrepreneur. You have to be nimble. You have to think quick on your feet. You have to be able to deal with things that happen along the way that you just never planned for. To paraphrase von Clausewitz, the first casualty of war is a battle plan. So for me, entrepreneurship is not about learning how to write a great business plan and execute flawlessly. It's frankly learning how to make the most with the ingredients that you have in front of you. Besides music, the one thing that taught me the most about entrepreneurship is cooking. And I've often said that a great cook or a good cook can make a great meal out of no ingredients, or not almost, very limited ingredients. You can just open your cupboard and say, I don't know, I have like some cinnamon here, and I have some yogurt, and I don't know, some old oranges, and a good chef or a good cook will make the most out of what they have. Having money to go to a fancy grocery store or go to some organic farm or whatever and buy the best ingredients, if you don't know how to cook, it doesn't make a difference. And for me, it's the same thing with, again, being a musician. A good musician can take this podium and right here can stand up and she can enthrall us with her drumming ability. So this is critical for me when it comes to entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial education. It's not about teaching people how to write business plans. It's not about just teaching people about how to do financial projections or analysis or any of this stuff. It's more importantly, how do you get somebody to get comfortable with being uncomfortable? You know, get comfortable with ambiguity. Other ways that music has similarities. Music is all about collaboration. It's about bringing different people together of different disciplines and getting them to see a joint outcome. And at the other side of the stage, where you guys are sitting, you don't care what part I'm playing, you know, and you don't care how brilliant the saxophonist I may be or how amazing the drummer is playing those eighth notes. You just care, does this thing sound good, you know? You're not, many people wouldn't be musicians. So it's the same thing with being, again, an entrepreneur. At the end of the day, who matters the most? It's the customer at, you know, on the other side. It's about this dialogue that you're creating, similar to the way that a performer creates a dialogue with their audience and co-creates with that audience. Another way that entrepreneurship is very similar to being a musician. For me, it's about learning how to constantly evolve and how to prototype. If you look at the most successful performers out there, I mean, I'll take one of our own, Talat, or whoever, you know, or Springsteen, the American Talat. You will see that their performance and their public performance always evolves. It never ever stagnates, it never stays the same. And also sometimes you'll go to two or three of their shows and you'll see that they'll play something very differently than the night before. That is because they're expert readers of that audience. And for me, entrepreneurs, that's what they do. That's what they do. They know how to go out there and observe, listen. Being a good listener is critical to being a great musician, but being a good observer is critical to being a good entrepreneur. And then based on that, they continuously evolve and they continuously adjust and they continuously I keep using the word co-create. So these themes that I'm bringing up, being a collaborator, improvising, being able to balance structure with ambiguity. Another thing that we do in jazz is saying, knowing when to lead and knowing when to comp. What's comp? When you accompany somebody. Well, being an entrepreneur is the same thing. Know when to take charge, but also know how to put and when to put a team together that knows more than you. And you say, okay, now I'm standing aside, and you can take over. So again, knowing when to lead and when to comp. Observing and dialoguing with your audience. Being able to stand up on a stage and effectively present an idea similar to the way that an artist is able to stand on a stage and effectively communicate what's in their deepest heart. And then lastly, I'll say that for me, entrepreneurship is a form of expression. Dare I say, not that different to being a creative being and wanting to express something. The best entrepreneurs that I know, and I do know a lot of very, very successful ones, even the ones that are multi-billionaires or that we glorify for better or for worse today, in some ways, I think maybe to the detriment of the term entrepreneurs are ability to be rock stars. You know, Mark Zuckerberg is the new Mick Jagger in some ways, right? But even the best of them, even when you read about the people that we idolize, like Steve Jobs, they're not motivated first and foremost by how to make money. They're motivated by the desire to better the world. I desire to, paraphrase Steve Jobs, leave a little ding on the universe and make it a bit better. So this concept of teaching entrepreneurship, I think for me starts by helping people discover their passion. And it's not about parodying somebody else. It's not about sounding like somebody else. It's about finding what's the deepest meaning inside of you and wanting to get it out there and express it. So how do we do it at Berkeley? How do we develop this mindset? At the Institute, and the only directive that I ever got from anybody was, just start an institute. Okay, what's that? I'm not an academic by training. But we have, we're approaching the way that we teach entrepreneurship not really that different to the way that we teach music. I found that first and foremost, entrepreneurship is practical application, more so than theoretical understanding. And music is really not that different. So how does one learn how to play an instrument? Anybody has an idea? I mean, how many people in this room have played an instrument somewhere or another? I mean, I would say almost everyone. So, I don't know, how did you learn how to play an instrument? You picked it up? Okay, and then what did you do with it? And you probably suck, right? I mean, of course. The first time you pick an instrument, you suck. And then, I'm sorry? And you still do. I still do. I gave up guitar because I suck. Then you find a teacher. But then, and then what else do? You also listen to people. You listen to others, right? You observe and you go and say, I don't know, I was a guitar player, I loved Eddie Van Halen. Okay, I bought all the Van Halen music that I could find and I started sounding like somebody else. So we're taking a similar approach to teaching entrepreneurship. We're saying, first, you have to do it. Like, start with, entrepreneurs are action bodies. You know, I say the equivalent of just writing a business plan and expecting that when you go out there, you'll be perfect. It's the same as if you're a musician and you're just studying the music for a week or 2 or 3, and then you go to, you know, Carnegie Hall or to Ligavidos, and there's whatever, I forget how many people Ligavidos has, like 4,000 people, and it's the first time you'll ever actually perform. Well, guess what? You'll fail. So let's start by getting people to try things. Let's start by getting people to overcome their fear of failure, because it's endemic to being a good musician, and it's endemic to being a good entrepreneur. Failure is part of the process, right? And you understand when you pick an instrument that you're not gonna sound good the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time, but by the 10th, 20th, 30th time, you'll just get better and better and better, and you have to have patience with yourself, and more importantly, the environment around you has to have patience with you. That failure is not the end, failure is the process. And I say to my students, don't fall in love with results. Don't fall in love with solutions. Fall in love with processes, with the process of going there. Fall in love with the problem that you're facing, because only then do you come up with inspired solutions. So with the Institute, we have 3 areas that we're developing. We have an academic component where we're designing classes, workshops, internships, lectures, experiences that are meant to do the following: create a practical environment for people to play, if you will, and fail safely. Second, create an observation deck of sorts where they're able to observe other entrepreneurs in practice. This is what internships do. This is what mentors do, right? I've learned so much just by, when I got my first job as a talent agent, I didn't know how to sell a band. You know what my boss did? Just sit across from me and just listen to me on the phone. And then, he says, okay, here's this artist, go and book a tour of Europe. I was 20 years old, I had no idea how to book a tour. He says, all you need is a phone and a piece of paper. And I just started dialing, and I was so scared, But this process of listening to him and doing helped me get better, helped me advance. And then comes theory. I'm not someone who's going to sit here and tell you, you don't need to understand how finance works. I'm not here to tell you, you don't need to understand what convertible preferred notes are, or what different classes of stock mean, or what's the difference between a preferred stock and a voting stock and a common stock. Of course you do, because these are things that will enable you as an entrepreneur to go to the next level. Very much like understanding theory of music enables you to break through and go to the next level, right? But I believe that entrepreneurial education starts first and foremost the other way that is often taught in business schools. Practical application first, observation and theory versus theory first, observation, and the very last thing that you ever do is engage in practical application. So I know I'm going a bit back and forth, but as I am improvising. We're building a curriculum, we're building a research center, and then we're building an incubator. So why research? Well, for me, research is the sandbox. No, there is no such thing as a research lab in the creative space. So when we're doing at Berkeley, we're not just looking at music as an entertainment good, but we're also looking at music as a catalyst for innovation. We're looking at music as it applies to healing and medicine, okay? We have a major in music therapy where we're observing the impact that music has on education, the impact that music has on patients with Alzheimer's, with dementia, on kids with autism, on the effects that it has on our body. But through this, we're creating an environment of collaboration of different disciplines. So with the Institute, we're collaborating with MIT, we're collaborating with Harvard Law, we're collaborating with Stanford, because we believe that fundamentally you foster entrepreneurialism through cross-pollinating different people, putting them in environments, having them collaborate and seeing what happens. So this is the last thing that I'll say, that people ask me, can you teach entrepreneurship? My answer to that is, if you asked me that question 5 years ago when I was an entrepreneur and very contemptuous, admittedly, of academics, even though I come from a family of PhDs, I would say, no way, you can't teach entrepreneurship. But then I thought about it. When I was asked to actually develop an institute in an academic environment, I thought a lot about it. And I'm like, well, if you believe you can teach anything in life, like if you believe you can teach somebody how to swing a racket and play tennis, if you believe you can teach somebody how to play an instrument, you believe, hey, Berkeley, we believe we can teach people how to improvise, which, 40 years ago, people would have said, you can't teach somebody how to improvise. You're born with a swing, man, unless you're some, black guy from New Orleans, you can never play jazz, right? But that's not true. We know that that's not true. We know that you can coach people to become better. And my approach to teaching entrepreneurship is, can you teach somebody how to become a Bill Gates or a Richard Branson or a Steve Jobs or an Arianna Huffington or an Anita Roddick or a Martha Stewart? I don't know, probably not. But can you teach somebody how to become a Usain Bolt? Probably not. But can you coach everybody to become faster? Absolutely. Can you coach somebody how to be more musical? Can you coach somebody how to become a better tennis player? Of course you can. Of course you can. So that's the overall approach that we're taking. It's about creating an environment and ecosystem. It's about bringing different people together and creating the conditions for those happy accidents to happen. It's about bringing outside thinking into the institution. I am busy piercing the so-called academic bubble as much as I can. How? By teaching courses not in the classroom, but by taking our students to a classroom at an office space of a company called IDEA that pioneered this whole concept of design thinking. And we actually did cross-registration from the School of the Museum of Fine Arts and Emerson College and Berkeley, so that we're saying, let's bring designers and musicians and communications majors, let's bring some engineers from MIT, and let's bring some business kids from Harvard and throw them together on a project, and let's just see what happens. So we're taking an approach that entrepreneurialism is something that can be coached. Entrepreneurialism is something that can be fostered by creating the right conditions, which you talked a lot about in your presentation, which I love. And that fundamentally, you don't need a bunch of money, to become an entrepreneur. As a matter of fact, the worst thing that would have happened to me early on would have been if all the rejections that I got from venture capitalists when I was first starting out and I had my business plan. The worst thing that would have happened is if I took that money. If I took money when I first started the company, I would have lost my way. I wouldn't have the confidence to know what I was supposed to do with that money, and I would have misspent it. But because I was forced to be resourceful, I ended up even coming with a business model and with ways that I grew my company. Because necessity for me leads to innovation. If you watch the new movies, I forget the Tom Hanks movie where he's stranded on an island. What's that movie called? Castaway. To me, that's entrepreneurialism. You make the most with the stuff you have around you. You learn how to fish. You learn how to, desalinate water. And I feel that as Greeks and as Cypriots, if there's any Cypriots in the room, entrepreneurship is part of our DNA. For God's sakes, I think we probably invented the term. Going back to our ancestors, we have the environment, we have the mindset that we need. Now we just have to put it together. And I want to commend Christos and everybody else for doing this. I just came back from San Francisco and I changed my trip to even make this for even like half an hour because I thought it would be that important. As a young Cypriot kid growing up in a pre-internet era, I know how much I was craving interaction. I know how much I was craving mentorship. As a musician, I didn't have the internet. I remember wanting to hear this saxophonist, Charlie Parker, and I had no way of listening to him. So what did I do? When my mom traveled to New York, I said, "Mom, please bring me a tape back so I can hear what the single b-ball is." And today, we have so many more resources available to us. I mean, even the people that are listening to us via the stream, we're so much more globalized. We're so much more connected. I think we're so much more inclined to help each other. And I was thinking, I can't believe I'm building a program for high school students for China in July to come and learn about being creative entrepreneurs, but somehow we're not doing this for Greek students, you know, or I can't believe that I'm building an institute for entrepreneurship at Berkeley College of Music, but for some reason up until now, I haven't done enough to export this mindset to my own country. And anybody who's successful in life, and I'll end this in a second, will tell you that you don't become successful because of who you are. You become successful because of a bunch of other people who've been kind and nice enough to you along the way to give you breaks and opportunities when they don't have to. You know, they're motivated, I found, you know, by sheer altruism and desire to do good because they benefited by somebody else. And that's been my experience in life. So I'm in a position now where it's time for me to give back in one way or another. And yeah, I'd love to find the best way to do that. So it's events like these and the stuff you were talking about earlier. And again, let's be entrepreneurial as the Greek economic forum, meaning let's be action biased, right? If we just, I hate events like this where we all go and we feel really good for about a week or an hour or a month, and then nothing ever happens, so we all forget about each other in a month and a half from now because we all go back to our busy lives. You only start companies because you don't go back to your busy life of being employed by somebody and playing it safe. You start companies because you say, every day I'm going to take one small step and do something different than I did the day before. And the next thing you know, to paraphrase the old Chinese proverb, you know, you started a journey of 1,000 miles because you took that simple step. So we're taking the simple step today. Let's make sure we travel those next 1,000 miles together. Thank you. Sorry, I know you have a lot of questions.
That's my point, right? That you don't always need the funding. It's about taking the next step. And you asked tremendous wealth of information. So what I entreat you is to become an advisor, to be part of the group.
I accept it.
Do that.
Can you imagine if I'm still here and I said, oh no, you know.
You need that, as you said, collaborate. And I think it's just absolutely wonderful to have that kind of talent on the team. At the end of the day, we're giving back and giving to each other, right? So what I would encourage is that the people that have been picked up to be advisors, we set up a forum of at least monthly. In today's world, there's no reason we can't communicate. I have teams all over the world, we find a way to be on the line of power. So we need to shape that. And you've got a wealth of information that you can share. I'm inspired.
Thank you, Manny. Well, and I will say that a lot of the stuff that you brought up, and unfortunately I wasn't able to make it earlier, but these things of mentorships, internships, today, yeah, I developed both an online course. Berkeley has 38,000 students online, okay? And I developed an online course with somebody from MIT. Well, I was supposed to be about half an hour ago, but you know, we deliberately said, let's bring the worlds of creativity and technology and business and create a course that's about all three, because we live in a multidisciplinary world. It's no longer about just being a specialist in one area, but you have to understand enough of the other areas around you. And I think with so much access to online education today, and the reason why we're meeting at it is because we're developing a MOOC or a massive open online course that will live on edX, which is the MIT Harvard platform. There is no reason why with this network, we can't help young Greek or not so young to be an entrepreneur. I actually don't believe that you have to be young to be an entrepreneur. I really don't think so. You know, my mom is 73 years old. She built UNICEF in Cyprus, and now they shut her down because UNICEF is moving to a fundraising model, not a model where you're selling, you know, goods. And, you know, I said to my mom, "Do you care?" "Yes." "So let's start a nonprofit that's affiliated with UNICEF, and let's go for it." You know, and I see my mom's energy at 72 being bigger than mine. So I don't believe, and let's not confuse entrepreneurship as a young person's game. I despise that. Unfortunately, you read the Wall Street Journal every day, you think that entrepreneurship is a bunch of 22-year-olds who are developing apps in Silicon Valley, wearing hoodies and flip-flops. And I've met entrepreneurs from all walks of life. I've met older women entrepreneurs. I've met young guy entrepreneurs. I've met, you know, it doesn't matter who you are fundamentally. So. You know, Ray Kroc, who started McDonald's in his 50s. Sam Walton, who started Walmart in his 40s. There's many studies that show that actually women tend to start enterprises later in life for all the reasons that we know. They start family. My wife is 40. We just had baby twins about 16 months ago tomorrow. so I'm doing this and raising baby twins, so you can imagine that I'm kind of frazzled. But she just submitted for Mass Challenge, which is a big competition here, and just got accepted. I'm like, go for it. So you're 41 and you have twins and you're a mom. Why not? Why should that prevent you? And I think that's what we need to get out there. Yes.
I think having the moves is available for anyone through the net. It's a fantastic idea.
Oh, of course, and the MOOCs are free, but the online course which you pay for, what I can do is on a very minimum give auditing privileges to Greek entrepreneurs. It's called creative entrepreneurship, and actually we explore some of the themes that we were just talking about. You know, so like there's been studies that show, okay, successful innovation comes from being able to associate sometimes different concepts and creating something different together. So one of our lessons, we're actually talking about the Beatles going to India, listening to Indian music, being inspired by Indian music, and then fusing it with American and Western rock music and creating a brand new sound. Well, what I did with my company, I didn't create the internet. You know, I didn't create a concept of an online marketplace. I just took concepts that other people created and applied them into a different space, and somehow we made something new. So often we think of entrepreneurship as just being innovative and coming up with a totally different idea. But sometimes it's about just taking stuff that already exists or building on strengths you already have and just creating something that exists in another world, but putting it into, you know, exactly. And there's companies, frankly, I mean, unfortunately, sometimes you're dealing with bigger markets like in China, where all they do is just copy American ideas and apply them onto, yes, it is 1 billion plus people, but hey, we're part of the EU, hopefully for a long time. You know, it is a global world. There is no reason why we can't export our Greek ingenuity and apply what we learned in totally different ways. Yeah.
Just that you mentioned the Greekness of this enterprise, and what came to mind was an earlier lecture we heard this by a professor from Harvard, who was discussing the financial lessons from Caribbean Athens and Carlos. And what came to mind was the fact that we're talking about entrepreneurial incubators and providing the right ecosystems. Why is Caribbean Athens essentially DC Athens an essential foundational example of Western ingenuity? Because the Athenian Agora, that was the prototype of entrepreneurial. They did it back then. Recreated today in the presence of the internet. I just wanted to throw that.
I mean, I love that analog because this concept of, you know, the agora, going out there and having this ongoing dialogue, sometimes a very heated one, if you will, I think it's central, you know, to being an entrepreneur. It's about being out there and putting yourself sometimes in uncomfortable situations, you know, and I've learned the most from my failures, if you will, and I've learned the most by the rejections. And if you don't take them as, oh my God, I've been rejected, but hey, it's a bad note that I played, And it's just part, so, I mean, hey, blues wouldn't exist if it wasn't for bad notes, you know? So I joke that sometimes what's the way to get over a bad note? You just play it again and again and again, and then you sound like a genius because you invented a new piece of music. So even the mistakes sometimes lead to breakthroughs and lead to new things. Yes?
Thanks again for all the great insight. And I just want to wish everyone a Christos Anesti the next couple of days of Ascension. But I wanted to ask you, can you help me understand if we were to transport this Berkeley Institute to Greece?
Yeah.
Are we talking 3 people? Are we talking 3 years to get a culture of startup, individual? You know, help me understand what's the, you know, to recreate what you're doing. And I know, you know, to be determined. You know, there's no perfect piece, but can you talk a little bit more about that? If we were to build this in Greece, what do you need?
I mean, I think it's hard to put a time frame. And as a matter of fact, I think putting a time frame would be wrong. It's more about saying, what can we start doing immediately? And then what is the ideal that we're aiming for? Like at Berkeley, we defined it as helping our students have successful careers. But here's a caveat. Even if it's not in music, up until now, we've always defined successful careers as being in music, but we know that a lot of our graduates take that musicality that they have. Some of them become engineers. I mean, as a matter of fact, the top 3 employers of Berkeley graduates are Apple, Google, and Oracle. You know, which is something we didn't even know because we never looked at it. We always define our success, you know, the Berkeley boilerplate talks about the 300 Grammys that Berkeley graduates won, or the multi-platinum awards records that they sold. So I think actually one of the things we should do is say, how do we define success ultimately? I think that what I've done with the Institute is saying, what are things that we know work in other entrepreneurial environments? So let me not go and recreate the wheel if we know that something's working. I know the things that work. It's mentorship works. Observing and being, you know, like we talked about Canada, bringing people here just to even understand and get inspired, like inspiration works. Yes, financial assistance on a small level, I believe, works. So at Berkeley, we raise money, but we're saying we don't want to make equity investments. We want to give small grants, $2,000, $4,000, $5,000 max, and just see what people can do, but then help them get access to resources like legal services, get access to resources like marketing support. Other things I was, you know, because when I started, I went to a bunch of different universities. I'm like, so what do you guys? I went to Stanford. I came here at MIT. And I'm like, so what do you guys are doing that are working? Lectures, believe it or not, they work. I mean, but not lectures, you know, where it's a lean back audience. It's more like a lectures where it's a lean forward audience where people are actively engaged. So, yes, ma'am.
Jennifer mentioned, make available to group professionals some scaled down version of a mentorship program, but then they have the option to opt into. You don't have to be in Greece to do that. You can use the gateway of death to find those young entrepreneurs that would want to plug into those opportunities. That to me is step 1. You've got a program right there. You've got a group professional who wants to do something. You've got an organization that can be the gateway. That's number 1. Number 2 then is to evolve and expand JAP. Maybe through some corporate sponsorship, we launch a little bursary innovation outreach program to fund and foster new ideas. That's something that we can look at. I'm really looking at a new crowdfunding portal that could easily be plugged in through JAP as an example. That to me is a practical next step so that we're actually achieving a result from this conference. And just getting that information plugged into your network, I think it's huge.
There's a few resources that I'm also involved in that I'll be happy to bring to the table. Things like the Capital Network, where it helps young entrepreneurs understand about finance, financial elements. You know, there's things like different incubators that will be happy to host Greek entrepreneurs for a few weeks and have them work side by side with American. There's one called the Work Bar that I have a very good relationship with. So these are areas, you know, that we should explore. Unfortunately, I'm extremely late. Thank you very much. Yeah, I wish
if I could stay, but I'll be, through Christos, I'll be in touch.
Thank you very much, Thomas. You're great. Continuing with Nicholas Bilios, PhD, Head of Corporate Communications and Newton's Laboratory in Administration, Greece, copyrighted at Newton's Laboratory. They will talk about defying the gravity of crisis, kickstarting growth and creativity in Greece, a case of the Newton's Laboratory.
So we take actually the creativity span from our wonderful previous discussion. Our talk actually will be also, I think, creative. So, dear friends and ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rapti, it's an honor and a privilege to be at Harvard, talking at the Greek Economic Forum about Greece and its potential for growth and prosperity. Instead of giving you, as I told you, a theoretical analysis on Greece's economic crisis and its detrimental effects on the societal and political front, we want to share with you actually a story, a true story. A story of brave, courageous, stubborn, hardworking, passionate-driven folks that decided to tackle the gloomy discourse of the economic crisis and transform it into a truly success story. The story of the Newtons, in Newton's laboratory. Using an antithesis to describe you our vision, we tried to replace, and we love literature, W.B. Yeats' poem on the description of doom, best description, unfortunately, of Greece at the moment. From his poem, The Second Coming, which I quote, he says, "Things fall apart, the center cannot hold, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." So we try to adverse this message with the Kazantzakian model. It says that a man needs a little madness and creativity, I would add, or else he never dares cut the rope and be free. Love responsibility. Say it is my duty and mine alone to save the earth. If it is not saved, then I am alone to blame. Love each man according to his contribution in the struggle. Do not seek friends, seek comrades in arms. So we obviously prefer this one. That inspires us. Let's start from the beginning of our story, or rather, from the end. We all started at the Leo Burnett agency. Interesting story, if you know Leo Burnett worldwide, he's a very famous advertising agency. For the founder of Leo Burnett formed the company in 1935 in the midst of America's Great Economic Depression. Apples have become a symbol for the Leo Burnett company ever since Leo Burnett put out a bowl of apples at the reception when he opened his doors in the middle of the crisis. And opening in that era caused a lot of talk, and people said it will not be long before Leo Burnett would be selling apples on the streets. Well, apples continue to be a symbol of Leo Burnett, hospitality and success throughout the years, and indeed they are. So we all worked in one of the top agencies in Greece at that time. The future looked bright for everyone, but unfortunately, it was not. The economic crisis hit hard. The economy took a plunge. Leo was one of the first victims, and it's apparent that for the economy, and especially for the people who work in the advertising industry, the effects of the crisis were devastating, as in the other sectors of the economy as well. Big players, mainly multinational companies with offices in Athens, start shutting down their operations, gradually shrinking the advertising market. So this could have been the end, and I could stop there. But then the idea stuck upon us. Dealing with such a blow proved to be the ultimate test for character for those of us who work there. We had to respond rapidly to changing circumstances without delay. We had to look for the opportunity amid the crisis. We had to catch the falling apple, the classic symbol of Leo, not let drop onto our heads and knock us out. And then something new happened. The Newtons were born. The Newton's laboratory, because we called it laboratory because it was experimental work in progress at the beginning. A 360 advertising agency starting from scratch with the support of some brave local clients of the old Leo Burnett, who decided to come with us to take a risk and trust the people who work for them, far from the multinational safety net. If we were going to go independent, these clients had to do the same thing. But in order for the new project to work, we had to rethink our methods, establish new ways of collaboration with the clients, and more than anything, adapt our creative ideas to an ever-changing environment. In order to function well and be fully practical, we implemented and we established strategic laws and regulations for our agency. Law number one, no media department. We wanted to endure solely to creativity. Law number two, we decided to have 4 distinctive departments: creative, digital, accounts, management, and planning, all work as one in order to maximize efficiency, productivity, strategy, and rationalize our costs. Law number 3, our emblematic motto, clients are tired of fighting on their own, so we fight with them and we try to be their allies. We realize that our clients' behavior and mentality have changed very much due to the crisis. Long gone was the client agency model, where the client marketing department made specific demands and the agency responded to the brief accordingly. The creation of any brief was now a much more dynamic procedure. The economic crisis had a huge impact on sales, and clients were challenged to think differently, outside the box. This was, and it still is, an economic war, and our clients were tired of fighting on their own, so they needed strategic allies, comrades in arms, as I said before. And this is why, from day one, we stood next to them, using our creativity to solve highly complex issues. Our primary goal is to contribute and help Greek brands herd and advertise outside Greece. And that's why we implement a carefully planned extrovert strategy for that, a roadmap, let's say, and this process is unprecedented. It never happened before in the Greek market. And we're trying to do that. Law number 4, creativity for the sake of creativity? Of course not. We're searching always for a holistic approach to the true meaning of art and its impact on creation. Creative ideas are relevant with our time. This is the most important law that we implement. We could not overlook that Greek society is undergoing a vast, radical transformation. We believe that our creative work should reflect that. Being a part of the public sphere, advertising should be solely relevant, penetrative, and honest in how it portrays the social landscape. So ultimately, what you give to the public are stories. Stories, linked with brands, and whether they were humorous or serious, the people could recognize themselves in our stories. In this way, our stories become talked about, reproduced, and eventually loved. Rule number 6, we're regular, ordinary, everyday people. Indeed we are, and we're very proud of that. Our team with an average age of 29 gives actually the lie to the stereotypes that abound of Greek professionals, by turns lazy, inward-looking, or living in the past. Instead, we are determined, adaptable, competitive. And of course, we work hard, we party harder, and we very well as well, as you can see. So my dear friend and colleague Jason will give you a glance of a sample of our emblematic campaigns that signifies what we said before, a rather sociological approach to the new discourse that Greece is undergoing at the moment, with always a creative, lyrical, and sometimes subversive political satire. Our campaign symbolizes and reflects Greece's struggle to overcome the crisis, a crisis that is and has affected not only the economy, but the culture overall. And that's the most important thing. Every campaign that you will see, it's a sample of our campaigns, has a meaning and an underlying thesis behind it. So Jason, the floor is yours.
First of all, I would like to thank the Greek Economic Forum, along with Dr. Rafi, that made the event happen, and the opportunity to attend Harvard, tell your story. Well, as Nico said, we are a 360 advertising agency. That means that we use a holistic approach in everything we do by combining print, television, radio, social media, and digital all in one. We're going to start with the Keep Walking Greece campaign. Actually, it was the first local TV production Diageo has ever done in Greece. If you don't know, Diageo is a national company that specializes in consumer goods with portfolio in famous brands. The campaign is about Greece and its people. The main thing about it is that motivates people, the Greek people, and makes them move forward despite the economic crisis. The symbolic thing was created and produced on April 2011, just after the first memorandum was signed, and the need for a spiritual uprise was essential.
Let's see.
Whiskey drinking occasions have become less common, and the notion of personal progress less relevant. Johnny Walker launched a 360-degree campaign with a message of hope and encouragement for the Greek people. Keep walking Greece. We created an 80-second television spot based on a song that has always inspired people, and a documentary-style approach involving real Greek people. We aired the spot after the evening newscasts as a rallying call to stand against the tide of bad news. When you walk through the storm, hold your head high, and don't be afraid of the dark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed. Walk on, with hope in your heart, and you Airport branding and presence in print media ensured the total communication effect. Finally, we created a Facebook page where users were invited to post their own messages and photos. After a few months, we are at second spot featuring this crowdsourced content. The overall campaign created a massive response, generating more than 1.2 million euros in earned publicity. The TV spot itself became the highest FMCG viral in Greece, reaching 450,000 YouTube views, while the official Facebook page gained 20,000 new fans. Yet the most significant result of all is that Johnny Walker became part of the social dialogue in Greece, inspiring people at a time of crisis.
So, as you can see, it became pretty famous. It was awarded the Best Earned Campaign at the Agile Marketing Brilliance Awards 2012. So, the next one is Ordinary People by Wind. A few words about Wind. Wind is one of the biggest telecommunication companies in Greece. And their concern was how to facilitate the average person and their everyday lives by providing better tools of communication. This is exactly what we try to do in this campaign: pay tribute to the average person in their everyday lives and the problems they have, and how, despite those problems, there is a company that can fight and stand along them.
We call them ordinary people. They are people who can guide us to the right path, although no one guided them. People with bright glasses on dirty faces, superhumans with capes and masks that will never star in a movie. People who still care to keep their sidewalk clean, who remember they are made of soil with mighty fists, although they may look weak. Small people who build giants, who care, who try, who won't ever give up. We call them ordinary people, although what they do is anything but ordinary. That's why Wind. Because when people try hard, companies must try harder. Wind.
And it was part of the CSR program of the telecommunication company, Corporate Social Responsibility Program.
So the third campaign is the contract farming campaign. As many of you know, agriculture is one of the main pillars of the Greek economy, and it's based on small-sized family units, farmers. At that time, the Reus Bank was introducing the contract farming program, a program that will facilitate farmers and modernize the agricultural sector. We planned a strategy and decided production. Actually, it was a documentary that focuses on the life of the farmer and the difficulties that he has, and that there is always someone out there that can support and provide.
To fuel your soil,